We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI. And like many, when asked, when will this happen, he says things like this. 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about. You know, when you think about what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true. Yeah? So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So, say I'm the President of the United States. So I receive this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, you know, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room in ways that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say, and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out. Yeah, so no, my view is that if it's a thing that you can measure, it's a thing you can improve. I think that being good with people, so we were talking with some of our technical people the other day, and one of them said this very funny thing. I'm going to try to remember what he said. He said, Language is a way that we use other people as tools to achieve our goals. So it's really deep, right? So we don't usually think about language that way, but when I say something, I'm trying to use you as a tool to get something I want. So in this case, we're hiring software engineers is the main thing that I'm trying to get. So I'm trying to use you as tools to satisfy this need of mine. Now, it's a little bit weird to think of things that way, but if you're building an AI and you go and you try to figure out what is language for, language is this thing that is a way to use the people around you to get what you want, which is almost, it's a little sociopathic when you think of it that way, but it's almost a definition of emotional intelligence, is that if you are so tuned in to the responses or how a person will respond to the message that you provide to them, not only your words, but your language and how you act and what you buy and what you wear and all that, that you can always predict that the outcome will be the thing that you want, you're going to be very, very successful. And say politicians are like this. You know, sometimes you see people and you think these people are just like, man, that guy's got charisma. Like I met Bill Clinton once and he was like, holy shit, I've never seen this before. It's like there's sparks flying off this guy. What was it? You know, he's just got something. And I think that, that's a thing that you can measure and it's a thing you can improve. And I think that it's going to be a part of AI in the future. Not only this kind of idea of like super rational, but also super good at getting what they want.
There's Jordy. Hey, Jordy. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, so the last time Jordy was here in 2013, he was the only guy in the world, he and his company D-Wave, the only guy in the world making quantum computers. We didn't understand what quantum computers were, and I'm not sure I understand it now, but he was getting 10 million bucks a machine and selling them to some of the most important organizations in the world, like NASA, like the CIA, like Mr. Bezos. And so you gave a talk, and I looked at the talk in preparation for this thing, and I still don't quite understand what a quantum computer is. But in any case, you're not doing that anymore.
That's true.
And now you're interested in building humanoid robots that are almost identical to humans. Do I get that correctly?
That's part of it.
That's part of it. And will they be able to understand what a quantum computer is?
It's part of what I'm going to be talking about.
All right. Well, then why don't you get started?
All right, thank you. Political agenda. In the future, when we can design minds, an important thing to understand is that designed minds can have any goals we want. In this wonderful story by Greg Eden called Permutation City, which I highly recommend that you read, the post-humans, some of them, explicitly go through this. Their goals can be set by themselves or some other systems, and one of the protagonists, his goal was just to carve table legs. That's all he wanted. He was really intelligent, but all he wanted was to carve table legs. And I think this little Cohen, Zen Cohen, is really kind of a key of this, is that what the goal of a machine is what we decide it is. We didn't get the choice, but we can gift this choice to our machine friends. And I'll just conclude by showing you a picture which a good friend and one of the true pioneers of AI and also a Canadian, Rich Sutton, originally shared. And it's an idea of circles of empathy. The key question that we have to answer about the future of AI has nothing to do with the thing that I'm calling intelligence and everything to do with the goals. We need to figure out who gets to decide what the super intelligent minds of the future want. So my perspective on this is the zeroth order commandment is we have to design machines that have goals that are good for us in some sense, and the hard question is who gets to decide what those are? You are surrounded already by alien minds. The bots that Russia used together with humans to influence the US election had a goal. They had an embodiment, all those typing fingers, And they had what I would consider to be super intelligent capabilities of some sort or another, either because there were a lot of people involved or whatnot. If you turn your mind to think about minds of technological artifacts, they're already here. This isn't science fiction. They're among us. And we're not prepared to have the discussion about what they should be designed for. And this is really, really critical, because if we choose goals for our machines that are contrary to our goals, we're going to be in competition with them, and we're not going to win. The future, I think, is going to be wonderful and terrific, but our place in it isn't guaranteed. If we make bad decisions, the future could turn over to our machine children and not our biological children. That's why I think that this idea of understanding how these things work is so important for people to understand. And I think that
in your lab, you actually create the synth? You build the synth?
yes, we have several. The intent is to create systems that are indistinguishable from human.
Right. And so your goal is to mimic the human in form and in function.
Think of it as deriving the angels of our better nature somehow, and distilling it into an AI whose goals are aligned with the things that we would generally think are good and not things that we would agree are bad. So what we're trying to do is the machines, the reason I didn't show any videos of cool robots moving is it's totally beside the point, really. The point of this is that we have to decide what the minds want. And part of our thesis is that minds that are engaged in social activity, naturally, we will like them more, they will do better if they like the things that we like and they want the things that we want. We can create machines that are wanting to cure cancer, for example. We can create machines that want to cure death, for that matter. You know, you can do anything you like as a goal system. But thinking about this explicitly in terms of what do humans want is, I think, the right way to look at the problem. And part of the lens we look at that through is people respond differently to machines that look like people than they do to machines that don't.
So Sanctuary is an academic exercise, a research exercise?
No, it's a business.
It's a business.
It's like D-Wave, a for-profit corporation driven by a vision. The D-Wave vision was a world with quantum computers. The Sanctuary vision is a world with good AI, minds like ours that want the same things that we want.
But what will you sell? Will you sell the synth?
Example, if you can crack this basic problem of being able to make machines that are like people in some essential way, you can task them to any task you like. And it's my thesis that these types of things will be better at very valuable things than we are, so you can put them against problems that have great commercial value. One of the obvious ones in the beginning is companionship. So the part of the mental health problems that we have created for ourselves come from a dislocation of people. People don't deal with people anymore. They're proxied through this weird, bizarre universe that comes through our screen. There's a possibility, it might sound outlandish, I know, that you can reverse that effect by creating technological things that are more like people. So instead of staring at a screen, maybe you stare at something that looks like you, and maybe that will help somehow. Now, I don't know. Again, a lot of this is experimental, but the root value in this is the mind. Is if you can crack the problem of how to create minds that are human-like or animal-like, you can task them to do anything you like, and that includes the entire world's economic activity.
Merely that. Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Let's take a picture.